Hello and welcome back to Unit Review. It's been a while, but we've got 3 new Necron units in the Kill Team Toon World box, and today we're going to talk about the first one, which is the new Cryptek, the Geomancer. So let's kick off with the stat block. The Geomancer has a pretty standard stat block for a Cryptek. She has a move of 8 inches, toughness 4, a 4+ save, 4 wounds, leadership of 6+, and an OC of 1. No invulnerable save. She is quite squishy. In terms of unit composition, it's a character model, obviously. It's a Cryptek, and the points cost is 75 points. We'll come on to that in a bit more detail later, but it is a bit pricey, let's be honest. Now, she is also a leader, and she can lead 3 of our units. She can lead the new Canoptek Macrocytes, Necron Warriors, or Immortals. And keyword-wise, they have Infantry, Character, Cryptek, Geomancer, and Necrons. Right, that's the basics out of the way. Let's now have a look at the firepower. So for ranged weapons, the Geomancer is equipped with the Tremor Glaive, and this has 2 weapon profiles. The first one is the Reverberating Beam. This has an 18-inch range. You get 2 attacks hitting on 4s. Strength 8, AP 2, damage 2, and if you're within half range, it's got Melter 2. That's pretty interesting. It's just a wacky profile. It's one of those cases, same as most of our Crypteks, where occasionally they might just hit and take the last couple of wounds off something, so it's worth having. Now, in melee, the profile is pretty similar. The Tremor Glaive gives you 2 attacks. It's hitting on 4s, Strength 8, AP 2, damage 2. Again, it's not going to pull up any trees in combat. It's just a nice to have, and it might add some chip damage. Moving on from weapons, let's look at abilities. Now, the core abilities are fairly straightforward and are as follows. She's got Leader and Reanimation Protocol, so can lead those units we mentioned earlier and benefits from the same Necron rule that everybody else does. However, it starts to get a little bit more interesting. She's also got something called Vanguard Protocols. What this means is this model gains the ability Scout 8 inches when it's leading Canoptek Macrocytes. Fundamentally, that's because the Macrocytes have Scout 8, so obviously you couldn't lead that unit unless you had the same ability or it wouldn't work. Moving on to datasheet abilities, the first one is called Tectonic Reverberations, and this is one that I mentioned in my video when the Geomancer was first announced, so we'll give myself a tick in that box there because I called this one right. And fundamentally, in your movement phase, you can select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to this model. And then until the start of your next movement phase, that enemy unit is pinned. And what that means is it has -2 to its movement characteristic and -2 to any charge rolls. Note this is different from some other pinned abilities for other units, as it doesn't include advance rolls. The other datasheet ability is the Obelisk Node Control. While this model is within range of an objective marker you control, enemy units that are set up on the battlefield from reserves cannot be set up within 12 inches of this model. So that is effectively a 12-inch deep strike bubble, but it only works if the Geomancer is on an objective that you control. And that is a good place for us to start on how to play this unit. So the first one is as on your home objective as the home objective holder. That 12-inch deep strike denial is really good, and as we just talked about, it's got a flamer there, so if your opponent does drop a unit in, you can flamer them. However, I think there might be better options already in our codex. For example, death marks, they're only 60 points, and they get to shoot as if it's the shooting phase if an enemy unit drops in close to them. The hex mark is 75 points and gets to Overwatch for free, and it hits on 2s in Overwatch. And then the third and final one is Imhotep. So he's 100 points, a bit pricier than the Geomancer, but is great for sticking on your home objective for that CP farming. The other way to play, I think, is more challenging and will require you to be a good player, probably a better player than I am, if I'm being honest. But this is to use that pinning ability. So play the Geomancer further forward to use that ability to pin enemy infantry and slow them down. So you can use that -2 movement and charge. You can slow elite enemy units like Terminators, for example. I think one of the drawbacks is that you're probably only going to get to use it once. If that's as soon as the Geomancer gets targeted, as we've already talked about, it's pretty squishy and it's going to go down. The 18-inch range is also quite poor. It doesn't sync with stratagems in Canoptek Court like the Lone Op strat. And if you compare it to Barb Gaunts, for example, in the Tyranid Codex, they've got a 24-inch, and their ability is what I would call a proper pin. So it's -2 to movement, advance, and charge. The third way to play, which GW seems to want us to do, is leading the macrosites. But in my opinion, I don't think there's a lot of synergy here. It's an expensive unit, and in my opinion, I think the macrosites might be better off run on their own. We'll come on to that when we talk about the macrosites in their own unit review video, though. Let's look at a couple of enhancements that might work well with this model. So we'll start in Awakened Dynasty with the Phasal Subjugator, which is 35 points. This has a 6-inch aura and gives you +1 to hit. I'm thinking here, if you are playing the Geomancer aggressively, like using it to pin enemy units, then you're going to be close by to some of your other friendly units, and therefore that 6-inch aura of +1 to hit might come into play. I'm just not sure, I'll be honest about this one, but it's food for thought. Meanwhile, if we move over to the Canoptek Court, you've got the Auto Divinator for 15 points. And this is the one where when your opponent spends a CP on a 2+, you get a CP back. And I think if you are using the Geomancer to hold your home objective, this gives you a way to farm CP from that home objective. A bit like when you would use Imotech, but it's another way of doing it. What about stratagems? Are there any stratagems in any detachments which will synergize well with the Geomancer? Let's take a look. So if we start in Awakened Dynasty, there is of course the Protocol of Eternal Revenant, the Chumbawamba stratagem. The Cryptek gets knocked down, spend 1 CP and they get back up again. Now this one might be handy because it means you can use his debuff again. So it pops out, points at an enemy unit, makes them -2 movement, gets killed, spend a CP, bring him back, and then you can do it again in the next turn. Again, just feels quite expensive CP wise, having to spend an additional CP just to use an ability twice. So it's in the back pocket, but it's not something that I would be proactively looking to use. It's just there for a just in case. In Canoptek Court, you've also got reactive subroutine. So if an enemy unit gets within 9 inches, you can make a reactive move of up to 6 inches. This one might help keep him alive. Again, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here. It's like he is very squishy, or she is very squishy. So the question is, do you want to spend CP? It's kind of the sunk cost fallacy. Do you want to spend extra CP to try and make them last longer so you can reuse that ability? I'm just not sure it's worth it. Also, disappointingly, one of the key strats in Canoptek Court, Suboptimal Facade, does not actually synergize very well with the Geomancer. This is the one where you get Lone Op if you are outside of 18 inches, but this really does not work well with the Geomancer, who has to be within 18 inches to use their weapons and their debuff ability. So I think you can see why there is a disconnect there, and it's slightly disappointing in my opinion. Let's wrap this up with my final thoughts, and I believe that there is potential for this model, but I think it needs one specific tweak. So let me know what you think in the comments. Now, the Geomancer, as we've seen, is not a buffing character model. It's not like the buffing cryptechs like the Plasmancer or the Chronomancer or the Technomancer even. It's much more like the Psychomancer, and it's designed to debuff enemy units rather than to have synergies with our units. What that means is you are unlikely to want to swap out one of those buffing cryptechs to put this into a unit, because you're going to lose some of those synergies, and frankly we need those to be competitive in a lot of cases. So the way I would fix this is very simple. I don't think it needs a points cut. Don't at me in the comments. I know lots of you would like to see it get a points cut, but bear with me. What I think it needs is Lone Operative. And this solves an awful lot of problems. All of a sudden, it becomes much harder to target. All of a sudden, the range of its weapons and abilities is greater than your opponent's ability to shoot at it. It therefore becomes a really, really useful tech piece. It could become very, very competitive. You'd be able to use it significantly to debuff enemy units to reduce their movement. And against specific factions, that could be really, really strong. So overall, I believe this is a beautiful model. It looks really cool, but it's not quite got the correct datasheet yet for me to be auto including it in my armies. I'm still having to sit here and kind of scratch my head and think, how am I going to get this into my army lists, and what function is it going to perform? And fundamentally, the one I'm really going to try first is a home objective holder, and we'll see how that goes initially. But as we've already discussed, there are other options there, and you might already be quite comfortable with what holds your home objective. Either way, let me know in the comments what you think about the Geomancer. Do you agree with me that it needs loan up to make it super effective? Do you still think it just needs a points cut? Let me know what you think. As always, I'll try and reply to all of your comments and replies. I really appreciate the engagement. Also, a huge shout out to the channel sponsors. I have affiliate links which I will put in the comments for Gambit Gaming, which make fantastic Grimdark inspired t-shirts, the official Warhammer merchandise store, and also for a fantastic hobby store in the UK called Loaded Dice. They've got an amazing amount of stock there at very competitive prices, so if you're based in the UK, go and check them out. And of course, I want to do a huge shout out to my patrons and channel members, and I really want to say a massive thank you for bearing with me. It's been a while since I've been able to put videos out, long form videos. I know I've been pumping out the short form content, but this is the reason why a lot of you support the channel, and I haven't been able to do it for a little while, so really, really appreciate you sticking with us. Thank you. At elite level, we have Castor, Living Dead Girl 40k, David Lloyd, Roberix, and Slayer Miniatures. At leader level, we have Bartosz Malkiewicz, Colin Nicol, Chad Henry, Stainsby Kingsby, John O'Neill, Phasmatis, Evan Peache, also known as Days 12, David Pooley, and Stephen Ramsey. And at the top tier epic heroes, a big thank you to Rally Point Games and Mines, Morton Monks-a-Roller, and Sovolf. Last but not least, a huge thank you to all of you who engage with us on social media on this topic ahead of the video, on Facebook, Instagram, on our Discord. I'll put a link to the Discord in the comments. It's free to join. It's a lovely, warm, inclusive place. Very funny as well. There's some fantastic members, so come on over. That about wraps things up for this unit review. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you've enjoyed this type of content, drop us a sub. And we're on all the social media platforms. Come over and join us. We'd love to see you there. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video.